Okay, let's talk about CloudWatch alarms. Alarms are going to be used to trigger notification from any metric. So we've already touched alarms when we were doing with autoscaling groups. And so alarms can be attached to autoscaling groups. They can be attached to EC2 actions or SNS notifications. So you can use alarms to modularize your whole AWS. There is various options, so you can choose to metric to alarm on the sampling, on the percentage, on the max, on the min. So you can basically customize your alarm anytime you want. And the alarms can be in 3 states. It can be an OK state. That means that your alarm is not doing anything. Insufficient data. This is when you basically don't send enough data for your alarm, so the metric is missing some data points. And alarm when your alarm threshold is being passed. In terms of period, basically, you have to specify a length of time in seconds to evaluate the metric. And if you use a high resolution custom metric, you can choose 10 second or 30 second as the period for the evaluation of your alarm. So that's really it for alarm. Let's just go quickly into CloudWatch to see how they work. So if we go to alarms, we can see that we have 2 alarms already, and these were created by Elastic Beanstalk. And so the first one is saying, hey, this alarm should look at network out to be less than 2000 for 1 data point within 5 minutes. And so this was created by Beanstalk. Obviously, this is for our auto scaling group, but it basically says, okay, if our application gets less than 2 megabytes, of data out for 5 minutes, then you would like to decrease the size of our ASG, auto scaling group. And this one is saying, hey, if we get network out to be greater than 6 megs, so if we are sending more than 6 megabytes of data out from our autoscaling group, we would like to increase, the scaling group the capacity because we want to scale up. And so this is why one of these alarms is in the alarm state. It's because right now, because we're not using our website, this alarm is red. And if we were to use that alarm, our Elastic Beanstalk website with real users would get maybe some traffic out of the network and the auto scaling group would scale. So this is the idea. This one will always stay in the alarm state because we're not doing anything with our website. And so what this translates into is that when we look at our auto scaling group right here, and we look at this one, if we look at the scaling policies, we can see that there is a simple policy which says if the alarm is the network out is less than 2 megabytes for 300 seconds, then remove 1 instance. And the scale up policy is saying if the network out is greater than 6 megabytes for 300 seconds, then add 1 instance. And the reason why we still have 1 instance in place is that we set the minimum capacity to be equal to 1. And so even though the alarm is saying remove 1 instance, because we already are at the minimum capacity, then the instance won't be removed. You could play around and add alarms on your own. So we could create an alarm and we get to see all the metrics that are available to us. And so maybe we want to get EC2 metrics. And if we scroll down, we see that there is my first web app Beanstalk prod. So that sounds like a good one. And I'll just look at network in, and okay, we get some metrics here, which is good. So if we look at the average of our network in over a period of 5 minutes, that sounds right, but you could set the period you want. Yeah, let's lose this metric. So we'll click on next, and here we get to define the metric. So we're saying high network in for Beanstalk prod. And so you can say, okay, if network in is going to be greater than 100,000. So here's my bar right here on the right hand side. This is where I define my bar, and this is blue is my actual values. So right now my alarm is going to be blue. Okay. So then we have to say for how many data points. So here I have 1 out of 1 data point, but if we look at the period on the bottom right, we can see the period is 5 minutes. So we could set the period to whatever we want. 5 minutes is what we have to use. If we used 1 minute, we'd be missing data because we don't have enough enabled metrics, like this, not high enough resolution for this. So we'll just keep it as 5 minutes, but we could go 5, 15, an hour, 6 hours, 1 day, over whatever period you want to look at. And so we're saying, okay, if we look at 1 out of 1 data point, so if one of these data points goes over 5 minutes, then do the alarm. Maybe we should say 3 out of 3 data points. And what this will do is that we'll say, okay, if for 15 minutes, 5, 5, and 5, so that's 3. For 15 minutes, we get the network in to be greater than the red line, then trigger the alarm. Here we can say what we want to be missing data. So if the data is missing, should we say missing state, or should we say good, so okay, bad, so alarm, or ignore to just maintain the same state? So based on the requirements, you may want to choose these. And the action is, okay, whenever the state is alarm, so whenever the state is in the alarm state, maybe we should create a new list, and I'll just call it alarm triggered. And I'll send myself an email. So I'll say, okay, whenever the alarm is going to go over the red bar, send myself an email. Now I'll go ahead and click on create alarm, and I will do it later for confirming my email address. And so here we see that so far we get this data point saying that there is insufficient data. So I need to just wait a little bit for this to become okay. So here we go. Now it's okay. So because it found all the data. And so it turns out that because my blue line right here is less than my red line, and has been the case for 3 data points within 15 minutes, then it's going to be okay. If I changed my alarm, and so I go and click on modify, and now I will say that my threshold is going to be maybe 20,000 for network in. Now my blue line is above my red line, so I'll save my changes, and within a second we should see the alarm being in the alarm state. So now it's red, and I will send and CloudWatch will send me an email saying, hey, something is up. So you can see how you start using alarms to basically trigger auto-scaling or to send yourself emails, and you can really be free into how you want to monitor your stacks and your applications. So that's it for CloudWatch Alarms. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture.